Happy Friday, everybody. It's February 28th, 2025, last day of the month, and we've got all of your news here in one place for your rush hour ride to work. And let me tell you something, we have a lot to get into. Some of the stories on today's episode will include Gavin Newsom's new podcast and what Fox News is saying about it. Plus, it's an economic blackout. Put your money where your mouth is, a grassroots organization taking matters into their own hands. I'll explain that. And Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. That's right. That's why you clicked. We've got it all. WME boss Ari Emanuel, a live recording has come out of the woodworks of him bashing Justin Baldoni in their Freakonomics episode. They thought the episode would never be aired. We got a recording. It's not great quality, but the tea delivers. Also, Elon Musk on Jon Stewart. He says, I'll do it if you don't edit at all. And they said, ball game, let's go. So we'll see when that takes place. Also, the Epstein files are beginning to trickle out, highly redacted. I'll tell you so far who's on the list and what this means. Oh boy, it's a free-for-all Friday, and it starts right now. Buckle up, folks. It's going to be a wild one. All these stories and more coming up next on The Rush. All right, so stick around for the Blake Lively tea. I'm telling you, it's going to be worth it. Very interesting stuff. We'll get to that midway through the show. But first, here's an update on the bizarre death of Gene Hackman and his wife. They are now calling it suspicious. I guess they found their bodies partially mummified. Have a listen.
All I can say is they have been deceased for quite a while. You know, that's a determination that's better suited for OMI and the experts, but it sounds like they had been deceased for a while, and I don't want to take a guess in reference to how long that was. There was no immediate sign of foul play. Haven't ruled that out yet. This is an investigation, so we're keeping everything on the table. You know, I think the autopsy is going to tell us a lot, and any evidence that we collect. But I haven't ruled any of that out yet.
All right, so we don't have all the information, but they're saying that a pest control guy showed up and was looking through the window, and they have the 911 call. It's kind of sad, but either way, we'll have to see what the toxicology says, because it's starting to look pretty scary out there. Speaking of scary, Andrew Tate lands in Florida. Andrew Tate was tried for a lot of crimes in Romania. I don't know the full story other than it was like sex trafficking and a lot of really messed up stuff. Well, Ron DeSantis had to do a press conference to say, hey, we didn't approve this. So far, I don't know who did approve this or how that works, taking a private plane into Florida, but we'll have to see if anyone is associated with this mess.
I read about it through the media. Clearly, the federal government has jurisdiction, whether they want to rebuff his entry. But the reality is no, Florida is not a place where you're welcome with that type of conduct in the air. And I don't know how it came to this. We were not involved. We were not notified. I found out through the media that this was something that was happening.
All right, probably the first thing me and old Ronnie Boy agree on. Maybe don't let Tate into the country. But then again, I don't know. You know, was he found guilty? I thought he was in jail. How did he get released? You know, I'm so confused. I'm also confused at the sort of grooming process of Levi jeans. I've learned, I was today years old when I learned you're not supposed to dry your jeans in the dryer. Did you guys know this? Here's a little update for your weekend.
I would say for myself, especially as I've now become a denim head, you do wash your jeans a lot less. They do not need to be washed after every wear.
Now, I knew that. Like, I don't wash my jeans all the time because, you know, I'm what am I doing? I work from home. I wash my jeans if I feed my baby and he throws, asparagus at me. But either way, this is the CEO of Levi's giving us the proper wash etiquette.
You know, there's lots of things you can do to take care of your denim. So, like I said, I'm washing them a lot less frequently than I ever used to. And then when I do, never put in the dryer. You air dry, and denim is really special. You know, you want to have your Levi's for tens of years.
All right. I don't know. Am I wrong? Am I wrong to dry them? Sure, they shrink every time, and then I gotta do that Irish jig dance you gotta do while you try to get them on. But I guess the key, maybe it's just the impulse. I don't want to wait for them to dry. All right. Well, it's a movement they're calling an economic blackout today. And it's an organization that is calling for a national boycott in the form of an economic blackout, urging Americans not to shop for 24 hours. So the movement is spearheaded by the People's Union USA, a grassroots group following the rollback of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives at several companies, including Target. The boycott coincides with protests against President Trump's plans to reduce the government workforce and mass firings at federal agencies. Listen, it's like people can vote with their dollar. If you don't want to shop at a company because they have DEI or they don't DEI, well, it's just like that's on you. You know what I mean? Just like vote with your dollar, do whatever the hell you want. Do I think this is going to make a big difference? I don't know. They've said, chances are people are just going to buy what they need to buy the day before or the day after. But either way, I love to see citizens coming together and fighting for what they want, and what they believe in. Whether you agree with it or not, that's what makes our country great. All right, well, Elon Musk replied to people demanding he go on The Daily Show because The Daily Show did quite the number cracking down on DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, calling it out, saying, using humor to shame it and really air out all of the holes that exist between what they're actually doing versus what their intentions are. And Elon Musk said he would go on the show. He said, "I will do it if the show airs unedited." And of course, here's the issue. They said we'd be delighted, but Elon Musk is kind of an insane person. He shows up on ketamine. He's running around with chainsaws, doing kind of crazy stuff. So I guess the question is, for The Daily Show, do they have enough time where they can air it unedited? Because, it's a half an hour show, isn't it? Or it's a very short show. So I think it should be a very long interview. You can't just let a guy come on for a 12-minute segment, filibuster, and then not get to all of the questions. So even if they aren't able to air it all on their sort of Comedy Central version, they should definitely put the whole conversation on YouTube unedited. I would love to see that. In fact, I demand to see that. Speaking of conversations in the long form variety, Gavin Newsom is starting a new podcast. I think this is a good idea. Listen, whether you are Republican or Democrat, it doesn't really matter. I think we need our political leaders to take up this podcast space to have long form conversations so we can get rid of those got you moments and actually get down to policies that help the American people. Here's Gavin Newsom sharing what Fox News has to say about his new podcast.
Compared to all these other Democratic politicians, he's doing better than they are. At least he's trying.
The graphics of the podcast, you pull those up, the light blue and the yellow, that's fresh. That looks good.
I think this is a great idea.
Why?
When you think about it, it's like the problem with the Democrats is they can't listen to other people's ideas and they're stuck in identity politics.
That old media game, like you were just saying, you 2 minutes and you're out, that game is done.
Gavin's a smart guy, he's got a lot of energy. I hope if he is able to pull it off, that what he does is really listen.
There it is. This is Gavin Newsom, and he's got a new podcast. Listen, I think, like I said, I think it's good. Obviously, I think it's pretty obvious he's going to be one of the top candidates for the Democratic Party in the next presidential election. We've known that for a long time. He's got some skeletons in his closet. Like he banged his campaign, person's wife when he was running for mayor of San Francisco. That's going to come out, and that's true. I mean, he apologized live on air. That happened. But hey, look, maybe there's a segment of our population that sees that as a real guy. I hate to say it, but gone are the days of being morally superior, right? Gone are those days. So either way, I think having robust and long-form conversations is the way to go. And I think it is kind of rich to say one side is obsessed with the culture war issues. I think both sides get weighed down in culture war issues. I think folks like Megyn Kelly, who I talk about all the time, are obsessed with culture war issues. Here's a culture war issue for you. Getting the price of food down so people can afford it. So we don't have to lock up baby formula because moms don't have enough money to go. Baby formula should be free. It should be something, if you need to steal it, you steal it. Because why would there ever be a black market for baby formula if it wasn't for babies needing to eat? These are the types of things I'm all about. I'm about kids being able to go to school not hungry so they can learn. Like, come on, guys. Don't we live in the United States of America? It's so funny. This last episode I was talking about how we need to crack down on these billionaires avoiding taxes and this and that. And people are saying, someone left a comment saying, well, Dave, the billionaires pay more. Sure, they pay a lot, but not by percentage of their actual income. So, it's so just wild how we're captive to these sort of like small, super wealthy groups of people and think that like their shit doesn't stink. I don't know. So these types of conversations I endorse. All right, coming up next, we have the full Blake Lively story, the leaked audio. It's going to be delicious. All right, so several weeks ago, Ari Emanuel went on the Freakonomics podcast and did a live show. They made some articles about it because there were people there and they kind of had some quotes of what he had to say. It looks like it came out on Valentine's Day, right? Several weeks ago. And then the episode never aired, which is sketchy as hell. Well, now we've got Colonel Kurtz, pop culture enthusiast here, discussing and sharing the actual audio from the event. Now, the audio is not good. I think it's from a reporter that was there recording, but I'm going to share the audio that we have. So no complaints on the quality of the audio. It's the content that matters. And I'm going to share all of that. But first, here's what Freakonomics said to explain why they didn't have the audio. I mean, at first, I wasn't going to believe them. At first, I thought, well, Ari Emanuel must have asked them not to air the episode. But I'll be honest, they went out of their way to explain what happened, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to play several clips of their conversation about why they never got the professional audio in a short episode that they're calling The Show That Never Happened.
Last Thursday, on February 13th, we were scheduled to do a live Freakonomics radio show at the Wilshire Ebell Theater in Los Angeles. Now, a live show for us is both rare and atypical because the episodes we put out here every week are very much not live. They are the product of many hours of research and recorded interviews and editing and mixing and so on. And that's the way we like it. That's the kind of show I like to make. But every now and again, we decide to put on a live show in a theater with an audience, and we record that show to make a podcast episode for later.
And then they go into all of the details about how they, there was a storm brewing and there was a lot of craziness and they wouldn't let the people in and the venue had an issue. I mean, it was a pretty convincing story.
With a look on her face that I couldn't quite figure out. In retrospect, she looked really ill. She was shaky. Her face was pale. So I asked her, what's wrong? And she tells me that in addition to the audio failures we had earlier, there was another even bigger failure. The show had not been recorded, she says. And I didn't understand. I asked her to repeat herself. She said, they didn't record the show.
All right, so heads would roll if this happened on my production. It's like you cannot trust you just can't trust anyone. So they said they had all these technical issues and they never recorded the show, which is quite a bummer. I want to go to the 13-minute mark where they kind of say, hey, we were going to recreate the show, but just so you know, the show just never happened. Here's what they had to say.
And Einstein said, everything is relative. To the 900 people who came out to our show that rainy night, thank you. It's nice to know there were some witnesses. And to everyone else who will never hear the show that never happened, well, take care of yourself.
And guess what? We will hear the show that never happened because we got that clip. Thanks again to Colonel Kurtz. Go give her a follow across all platforms. I'm going to play the full, it's just like 3 minutes of this 29-minute clip. You can go listen to her commentary of it. It's fantastic. I'm just going to play what Ari Emanuel has to say. Again, it's not great quality, but it's the quality we have. Listen closely. Oh, and by the way, I should say, this is Ari Emanuel. This is the agent for Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. Maybe I didn't make that clear. And this is him, doubling down, believing Blake and Ryan, and calling Justin out for a lot of different things that, for the most part, never really came to fruition.
I don't keep up that much on Hollywood. But even I caught wind of the Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds. Let the record show for those listening at home, Ari just slit his throat.
So Ari does the throat-slitting motion, they're saying. That's very nice. The most powerful man in Hollywood slits his throat. Great.
A fucked up, bad situation that Baldoni, whatever his name is, doing. And
So he calls him Baldoni, whatever his name is. Again, Baldoni was represented by WME.
now he was your client too, until until I fired him. Right. You know,
Says he was your client, and he goes, yeah, until I fired him.
just give a little bit of backstory. It's not really fair. I've known Ryan and Blake for over a decade. They're really incredible people. In Hollywood, they have been incredibly successful. People work with them. They've never had any bad mojo out there and treated people badly. They kind of are charitable because we help them with their foundation. They've given tons of money away. If what is alleged in her lawsuit that happened on social media, just because she complained to the studio that things were unhealthy on the set, that he was director and this man was the producer, and they did to her what they're being alleged, they're really bad people.
He goes, if what they did is true, they're really bad people. And of course, it sounds like the audio recorder is stuck in the bottom of a bucket of popcorn. But hey, we'll take it. Because you know what? We are crackheads when it comes to this content. We really are. So we will take it. But yeah, this is, I mean, look, if what Blake alleged is true, then yeah, he would be a monster. But if what Justin alleged is true, she'd be a monster too, right? So there's more to just saying if this, then that, because at this point, this is just a couple weeks ago. These are his clients. He should know a little bit more about what's going on here. And by the way, if Blake filed a complaint, and what motivation does Justin have to go on the offensive to try to smear her? What motivation does he have to go on the offensive to smear her when all of his money and investments are on the line with his project as the producer and director? Makes no sense.
And Blake, I know Blake. I know Ryan. They're actually good people. Now, social media is a really good thing at times because it lets people, stars, connect with their fans. But these two guys used it in an evil way, if that's true. And we just have to be cognizant that you can ruin, and they should no longer be out there intimidating people, using social media now and trying to hurt them and using their what they have been doing prior to it now to go against them. They should just stop since they think they're innocent and let the process play itself out. These are good people that have been in the business for decades and have never had any bad press about them, and all the people they work with like them. And so, if it's true what they're saying in that allegation, these are two bad guys.
This concerns the making of a film where there's sex scenes and there's, I guess, what is...
All right, and then they go into some other stuff that's really more about the intimacy coordinators and stuff like that. Look, I mean, gosh, he really offered nothing of value. I'm sorry, was this a nothing burger? Well, it just goes to show, I mean, Ari Emanuel, isn't he like a billionaire? Isn't he like the richest agent in Hollywood? Fuck this guy, right? He goes on Freakonomics and he can't even offer any... It's like, either comment on it, and also like let it be known. Yeah, yes, sure, you've known them for a long time, but you're also making whatever 10% of their income, and they're going to make you a lot more money than Justin is, or would. But this is just it's we knew from the articles that came out that these were the quotes we were going to hear, but it just shows how spineless people are when it comes to just doing what they need to do to please the right people and get their money. Now, look, I don't want to foreshadow something, but there are hit pieces coming out that are going to take a crack at content creators that are covering this. This is just what you know is going to happen. So we will make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's to make sure that gaslighting, and I don't use that term too often, gaslighting doesn't happen. The idea that we retell the story of how this all went down. Because I do think a lot of people have been fair to cover this from every angle. And I think the internet, while it does get some things wrong, for the most part, the truth rises to the top. I truly believe that, especially in this case. So we'll continue to cover it, but we're not going to We're not going to let the boss and someone who's, essentially an investor in Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively tell us how to think or feel. So that's not going to happen. All right, coming up next, we're going to cover the bizarre encounter between the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of the UK. That coming next. All right, I don't even know if I'm being punked anymore. Is this all one giant psychological experiment to see if I'm going to go crazy? The reporter asked Trump, do you still think that Mr. Zelensky is a dictator? This after last week he claimed that Zelensky was a dictator because he hasn't had an election. And of course it's because they are under attack, and that's what happens. Elections are paused during warfare. But here's the question and here's the answer.
Do you think that Mr. Zelensky is a dictator?
Did I say that? I can't believe I said that. Next question.
I don't even know if he's joking or not. Do you guys understand how weird this is? He says, did I say that? I don't know. Did I even say that? And then he moves on. There's no smirk. He looks like, guys, this is a little wild. So either way, we've got the Prime Minister there with Donald Trump and JD Vance. And at this moment, we've got Trump cutting off the Prime Minister as he talks about Canada and tariffs. Have a listen to this.
Because we have been taken advantage of like no country has ever been taken advantage of. Thank you very much. And
look, we had a really good discussion, a productive discussion, a good discussion, as a result of which our teams are now going to be working together on an economic deal. Our teams are going to be working together on security in Ukraine. You mentioned Canada. I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist.
Wow. How crazy is this? The Prime Minister of the UK says you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist. This is powerful stuff to come in and say this. This might, you might say like, oh, I would say the same thing, but there's a lot of, they call it political talk for a reason. You're sort of like kind of like bending the knee, and it's all the just sort of chivalry of the regalness and all that BS of how it all works. He's saying you're trying to divide us. It's not going to happen.
We're the closest of nations, and we had very good discussions today, but we didn't discuss Canada.
Thank you.
And then Trump says, that's enough. Thank you. Let's play that one more time.
We're the closest of nations, and we had very good discussions today, but we didn't discuss Canada.
Thank you. Please. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
Wow. Guys, this is insanity. And you know what's so funny? And I don't even mind it at this point. Those that think folks like me have Trump derangement syndrome. Let me tell you something. Folks like me, we're holding up the wall here. Okay? We're holding up the wall as so many great relations are being threatened right now. Great relations with other trading partners and essentially the Western world. Because you know what's going on? The United States is becoming that friend nobody wants to hang out with. You know that group message that's like, oh, all of our college friends. And then there's that other group message that's like all of our college friends except Becky. We're Becky. So they've all got a group message, right? They've got the Western world, the UK, Canada, Mexico, and they're all saying, what can we do to all work together to avoid needing the US because we don't want their drama right now? That's exactly what's happening. And when you call it out, people go, oh, you're just deranged. It's absolutely wild. Here we have JD Vance clashing about free speech. And again, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, speaks up in defense. And look, does the UK have free speech? Does the US have free speech? It's all like the US, I mean, we've got newspapers owned by billionaires. We've got platforms owned by billionaires. We've got people canceling each other left and right. Technically, we do have free speech. But at the same time, we've got Associated Press that's not being allowed into the Oval Office. We've got only reporters from one side of the aisle getting questions when it comes to the news. So do we have free speech? Sure. But is it being threatened? Absolutely.
There have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British. Of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
There it is. So he's got to go back to the UK. So he's defending his people just like the Canadians are defending their people. And the last clip I'll share is Trump saying that he thinks Starmer, the man we just listened to, the Prime Minister of the UK, which, by the way, I didn't, and most of you didn't know his name before this, because the US, we have our head up our asses and we don't follow like like international politics. But here's what Trump had to say after the conversation.
Prime Minister Starmer, you've been terrific in our discussions. You're a very tough negotiator, however. I'm not sure I like that, but that's okay. Very, very special person.
Okay, he calls him a special person. All right, so those are your updates from the awkward conversation. I mean, how do you break this stuff down? And in other news, Donald Trump was named in the Jeffrey Epstein flight logs released by his own attorney general. Now, look, we knew this was going to happen. I think this was already information that was out there. He was mentioned on several different pages from flights dating back to 93, 94. And listen, I'll be the first one to tell you, just because you were on a Jeffrey Epstein flight didn't mean you were part of the funky business. For all we know, there might be dozens of trips that Bill Clinton was on or Bill Gates, and some of those trips were actually philanthropic trips. And some of them were heinous crimes. And we need to, if they're able to, get down to the bottom of which is which. And I would probably urge people in the meantime to leave a little space and time to figure that out. So again, it's not going to change anything the way people think. Jeffrey Epstein was a billionaire who was, in the center of not just the social life, but also financially. He's literally, was in the room with princes from the UK that were accused of words we can't say on morning podcasts, and it's wild out there. So I think people were upset when they found out that this Epstein log list was going to be released, and we only got part of it, and it's highly redacted. Share the whole thing. Let's not rewrite history. Put your cards on the table. Who's on that list? Why were they associated with Epstein? And let the fallout be where it may. I say that across the aisle. Let it be where it may. So that's it for me. That's our crazy morning. Boy, we caught a lot covered just right now, and we're going to have a lot more this afternoon and videos in between. We have new documents coming out, so stick around the YouTube channel. If you haven't already, double check and make sure you're subscribed. We are very close to 125,000 subscribers. I'd love to get to that by the end of the week if we could. So let's make sure that happens. And have a good one, everybody. Enjoy your workday. Mail it in, and we'll see you in a little bit. I'm Dave Neal, and this is The Rush.